Sahanau bhavatu, sahanau bhunaktu, sahaviryam karavavahe, tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Last week we spoke about some glories of īśvara and how we can see and devote to īśvara in everyday life. And some of the examples we used for the second stage, which was Vishvarupa īśvara or Aneka Rupa. In other words, a form which is all forms. That means there's no particular form. And some of the examples we used was īśvara is the womb and the material cause for the whole universe, just like a lovely picture of the womb, which is called the upadana karanam, the material cause, and then the seed and the life giver, which is the nimitta karanam, in other words, the intelligent cause. And some other examples we used were īśvara is the one who presides over all actions and gives results. So that means a common example is we hold something and we drop it. The action of dropping, of course, provided an effect, and that effect in itself is gravity, which is īśvara. Or, for example, we expel some air through our vocal cords, and then it produces a sound. So we produce the cause, and then it had an effect. So we also depend on air to communicate, and air is, of course, also īśvara. Also, the other aspect is it is the cause of all causes, which means there is no other cause outside of īśvara. It's the foundation of all. That's why we have the paper. So whatever we write on the whiteboard, we depend entirely on the whiteboard itself. So that's why it's the cause of all causes, the substratum. And īśvara is also the means by which we get to know the Vedas. Because if you think about it, we need the eyes and the ears to hear and to learn and to hold things in our memory. So even our chitta, the ability to assimilate the knowledge, is also īśvara. And in that way, it is also the means to worship. So whatever we're given, a protocol to play or to perform, is also a ritual in itself given to us by sarvam jnanam, all knowledge, which comes from īśvara. It is also īśvara is also the goal to be reached, and because it is all there is īśvara, so there's nothing else to reach but īśvara. And it is also the destination, but also based on how we perform our duties, whether it is dharmic or adharmic, it would depend how quickly we come to this destination. So this is a lovely example why devotion is so important in life, because everything that we gain and all of the knowledge from the beginning of our birth was totally reliant on these laws and orders of īśvara. So this is where the bhakti, the love for God, starts to come. To realize that even to be here or to drive the car, even the cement itself supported the car, not swerving off the road. And someone could have had a heart attack and crashed into your car, but that didn't happen. So every single day, we're kept safe like this to keep moving forward. Furthermore, īśvara is the one who nourishes us, that is with food from plants. The whole world is dependent on nothing other than plants. Animals are also dependent on plants. And it is the one who provides emotional support, love and care for us. For example, you'll say, how is this possible? Well, your own spouse is there for you, who is also īśvara's laws and orders working through them to help you. And it is also the intellectual cause, which is expressed as knowledge and ideas. So whatever idea or an aha or an epiphany you have about something, which when imposed, there is a benefit provided for you and the environment, that aha comes from none other than sarva jnanam, from the whole, from the total. Furthermore, it is the source from which all divine virtues come from, which by their practice we establish and are aligning ourselves with reality, with harmony of the whole. So whenever someone's life is out of alignment or it's not working properly, then we can just ask them a few questions like, are you following certain rules? Like, are you being honest with yourself and the environment? Are you paying respect to those who are around you? Are you acknowledging them for being in your life? And they will usually say no, 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 no. There will be a few yeses. So this is what it means to be out of alignment. So the more we follow these divine virtues, the more life becomes smooth. Furthermore, īśvara is the cause because of which the guru comes to a sincere seeker after worshipping for an amount of time. And this also supports why īśvara is the one to worship, because if I don't worship the one who gives this knowledge, then the knowledge is not going to come. Just like if a child doesn't worship or does naughty behavior to his mom or dad, then the mom or dad is not going to bless the child with the ice cream. So in the same way, we get blessed with the moksha ice cream if we devote and be sincere with our efforts in our life. īśvara is also the one who is able to do and undo and redo realities in this world. For example, we can be a mosquito. I'm sure some of us were a mosquito at some point. And then we are undone back into a jivatma, which is called a manushya, a human being. And then we go, depends on our punya and papa. And we also said īśvara is the objective illuminator, or the sakshi. The reason we have this image is because if you look at this platform, this is like the mind. So it depends on what kind of dharma or kind of principles in life are stored here, is exactly what will be reflected back in the personal everyday experience. So the whole purpose of Vedanta sadhana is to purify the mind. The Atma doesn't get touched, it is always shining as it is in its pure glory. We're going to ask the question, how is it that so many different kinds of worship in this world, how do they actually get accepted and received by īśvara's laws and orders? For example, some people, have really funny ways of praying, and they do sacrifices, like sacrificing blood or animals or even human beings. That was some time ago. And they're not being bad. It's just their way of worshiping what they believe to be the total. And now we use an analogy to explain that. How is it that different cultures all can worship God, and yet it seems that there's a difference between what God means? It's very simple. In 9.16, covered last week, we will use an example of a dream. So the person is dreaming, you're dreaming, and in the dream there is a dream worshipper, a Superman. And dream worshipper is the one that actually does the worship. There is also the dream worship itself. This means the whole environment of the worship, these chairs, the lights, the air, everything about it is also the dream worship. Then there is the dream worship materials. Offer some bananas or some fruits or candles, whatever it is. It is also made of 5 elements, Pancha Mahabhuta. Then there is, in the Vedic culture, there is a dream fire into which we offer this worship. And then we provide certain prayers or mantras to invoke deities. That is also a dream mantra. And then we have the hutam, the action of worship, the actual putting into the fire, or in the actual saying the prayer. And all of these that we just mentioned are none other than the one same waker. But the waker thought one of them was a Christian, this one was a Hindu, this one was a Buddhist, and yet they're all the one same waker. So no matter to whom we pray to, we're only ever praying to the one same īśvara. And then finally, the question will arise, how does īśvara actually respond, or does īśvara actually respond to our prayers? Because sometimes we feel really small in this world, and we say, well, how am I any important here to be heard? There are people in Africa who are a lot more in need of help than I am. I'm in a first world country. And the truth is, īśvara responds to everyone. So we'll just use an analogy. For example, a little baby can't talk, can't say many things, doesn't know the language, and yet there's a big, lovely dad sitting by. So what does a baby need to do to invoke the dad's presence? Does the baby need to start chanting mantras, start learning Vedas, prayers, throwing things into the fire? Oh, Dad, please answer. No, one single touch, one little pinky the baby touches. And now does the pinky respond or does the entire father respond? The entire father. So this means the baby can even say one little word or just like one little intention. And what does this do? It invokes the entire Purusha, which is Hiranyagarbha or īśvara. So last week we finished up to verse 19. This week we will cover verse 20 to 25. Now from verse 20 to 29, Krishna will be speaking about two types of bhaktis. The first one is Sakama Bhakti. Sakama we put form or apurna benefit. Apurna means a benefit which is not full. It is a limited benefit. So this means if I worship form, sakama, then I will get limited benefits. The next type is nishkama bhakti. This is formless or purna benefits. Purna means full. I get the full entire benefit. Krishna does not say which one to choose. God is not here to tell us. He's only here to offer us, here's option A, option B. It is up to you. And Sakama Bhakti, the Bhakta, the person in the Sakama category, seeks two principles. The first is Artha, which is worldly security. And second is Kama, which is worldly entertainment. So, if we look at today's world, we will see these two are dominant. In fact, the whole world is in the face of facing these two constantly. And Nishkama Bhakti, or Bhakta, is not interested in these two, of Artha and Kama. They are interested in īśvara, the limitless. Why? Because they know the limitations of the first two. They know no matter how much money they'll get, they'll never be happy. And entertainment will only cause them to turn on the channel tomorrow and see how the soap opera, who cheats on who, you know how it is. It's very addictive. So the Nishkama Bhakta invests all time, energy, and effort into pursuing īśvara through Karma Yoga and Upasana. I did not say Jnana Yoga, self-knowledge, because that comes in a different category. So Karma Yoga and Upasana is how they seek the Lord. And they say something like, "Oh Lord, give me a pure mind so that I may assimilate the knowledge through the Shastra Vichara." Shastra Vichara means contemplating on the scriptures. So they're praying for Lord to give them a sharp mind, a sharp intellect, a pure lifestyle to be able to pursue this day by day without any interruptions. Furthermore, owing to their fine-tuned intellect, they understand one thing. They cannot open a Coca-Cola bottle without a can opener. I know you're going to say yes you can, because some people even open it with their teeth. They need a can opener. In the same way, they understand they cannot open the truth of these shastric statements without an acharya opener who opens the meanings of these statements. This is just common sense. Just like in school, we seek for a teacher to explain how to calculate or add. As adults, unfortunately, we think we're smart so that we start pursuing this by ourselves, but it doesn't work. Or it can work, but it just takes a lot longer. And just to compare the Sakama and Nishkama, in one summary, Sakama equals improving time-space experience. And Nishkama is freeing from time-space. That means this one is not interested in time-space optimization. Question will be, how do you tell which one you are? Are you Sakama or Nishkama? And this will determine based on the intention or sankalpa. Sankalpa means, what is my motive behind my bhakti? In other words, where is the mind's eye on? Is it on money or is it on money? You're going to say, huh? What's the difference? Okay. The first one is, my mind's eye is on money for the benefit of kama and artha. The second one, my mind's eye is on money still because it's an incidental goal to pursuing īśvara. If I cannot pay the rent, how will I study in peace? If I'm worried about finances, then how will I generally take time and be interested in this when the primal flight or flight will take over and I'll constantly worry about it? They understand that worldly pursuits are only incidental or secondary to pursuing īśvara. Now, this bhakti is classified into 3 categories, and we spoke about them last week. This week we will further expand on them. And the bhakta's relationship with Lord or īśvara will determine how they conduct their transactions with God based on these 3 levels. The first one we said eka rūpa īśvara, īśvara who is one form. Another name is Manda bhakti. Manda in Sanskrit means dull, or it's the most gross bhakti. And here Bhagavan is used as a means to worldly end. In other words, Lord is my friend for gaining wealth. He is my friend for gaining health. He is my friend for marrying off my daughter or having my son find a good wife. So Lord is there to help with our worldly desires. In other words, this person loves the Lord not for Lord's sake, but for world benefit's sake, because he's the one who provides the benefit. Therefore, I love him as long as he can keep providing me benefits. For example, I, as a friend to someone else, am loved. Why? Because as long as I can keep borrowing him money, then I am loved. The moment then I start and I say a little test, let's see if he really loves me. So then I stop borrowing money when he asks. Then what happens? The relationship with this other slowly starts to disintegrate. In other words, this person never valued me. He was only valuing me as what? As the end to his means, which is the money. So this is the relationship that Bhakta number 1 has with Lord. He's there for my purpose. This is the most common bhakti in the world, and it's called Sakama Bhakti. We just explained Sakama number 1, Nishkama number 2. The second category is Aneka Rūpa īśvara. God in all forms. There is no form where he is not. The name for this is Madhyama Bhakti. And here the attitude changes and the person matures a little bit. And they understand that God is superior to anything worldly. That means the world is not higher than īśvara. So instead of loving īśvara for the world's sake, īśvara is loved because īśvara is the end itself. Here, īśvara becomes the end and the world becomes the means. So there's a total reversal. Step 1, the world was the end, īśvara was the means. Here, īśvara is the end and the world is the means. And the name for this is Nishkama Bhakti. So now you know where Nishkama belongs. In chapter 7, this is also called Jijnatsu, the one who is desirous of īśvara. Also, in stage 2, this Nishkama Bhakta cannot necessarily tell the difference between Saguna īśvara and Nirguna īśvara. They're still muddled, they're still fuzzy, but they're trying to understand what is the formless. And the third category is Uttama. Uttama means excellent. Uttama Bhakti. This was also called Arūpa īśvara. That means īśvara that is formless. We cannot attribute any form onto that which is formless. So here Vedanta challenges the Bhakta and it says, why do you want Bhagavan as the number 1 goal in your life? Often people cannot explain this. There are very devotional people in this world, and they will go to the temple very often, and you ask them, well, wait a minute, have you ever thought about it? I know you love the Lord, you got excellent sadhana, but why do you want the Lord? They will have to answer like this, because if I attain Him, the Lord, then what will happen? I will be happy. They will have to admit that sooner or later. I love God not for God's sake, but my sake. And this can come off as selfish if the person is not qualified, because they'll be thinking, well, it's about me. But this person understands that there is no essential difference between īśvara and the self. So they're trying to come to that resolution through sadhana. So we can also prove this, because if īśvara was not the source which can provide the happiness, then as soon as something else comes, what are they going to do? They're going to change the goal. So in other words, they're only focused on īśvara because they know that is the source of all joy. And this also shows a truth that we have to accept, is that we don't love īśvara more than we love ourselves. We love ourselves more than God, because at the end of the day, it becomes about self. So the order of this that I'll just explain is love for the end, which is īśvara, is superior to love for the means. The means is worldly stuff. However, love for the self is superior to love for the end, which is īśvara. This means, end of the day, I don't love īśvara for īśvara's sake, but for my sake. So here in stage 3, īśvara is neither the means nor the end. But one discovers simply that the truth between self and īśvara are one and the same. There is no essential difference. This is why the name for Uttama Bhakti is Advaitam or Abheda Bhakti. Abheda means absence of division. That means there's no real difference. For example, from an ant's point of view, is there a world? For us, there's a world. There's many different objects in this world. There's couch, there is wall, there is camera. Is there such a world for an ant?
Yes.
No.
That's what he's got
This
his
is a
own world.
world, but not that
Yeah,
kind of
they've
world.
got
And he carries a little grain of sugar on his head. That's his world.
Okay, that's true. That's
It's
true.
not the same world that we perceive.
Not the same
Oh,
world.
no, of course.
Okay, but both of them are jivatma. Jivatma means what? There's a subtle body and there's a causal body. That's what makes the ant the causal body. So now, for an ant, the world is mostly green and brown because they hang around on leaves and brown soil and tree bark. But for us, there's so many different objects in this world. So the question is, who's right? Is the ant's world right or is our world right?
Both.
Both
Yeah.
are right.
So they're both right. But what is the one essential sameness between our world and the ant's world? They both resolve, they're both pancha mahabhuta, they're both 5 elements. So from our angle, we say, oh, there's car, there's people, there's shirt, there's everything. From an ant, very simple. But the ant is not wrong. From the ant, it's absolutely true also. But however, they both are relying on the one same substratum, which is the elements, or in the science terms, you can say atoms or subatomic particles, which then resolve into the 3 gunas, and then resolve into maya, and then resolves into consciousness. Summary, stage 1, God is the means. Stage 2, God is the end. Stage 3, there is no essential difference. They're one and the same. This was a setup for the verses that are to follow. So now we will begin verse 20. Traividya mam somapav puta papaha yajnairishtva swargatim prarthayante te punyamasadya surendra lokam ashnanti divyan divideva bhogan. Verse 20 to 21, we'll be talking about Sakama Bhakti. You already know the two differences between Nishkama and Sakama. This is only Sakama Bhakti, verse 20 to 21. So stage 1 we will speak of. And then Krishna says, Traividya mam soma paha puta papa yajnaihi mam ishtva. In other words, stage 1 or Sakama Bhakta or Bhaktas are informed of the Vedas because they read the Vedas, they read the Shastra, and they perform the Soma Yajnaha. The Soma Yajnaha is a ceremony to appease the deities. Now, a red alert is going to come up and you're going to say, what do you mean by that? It sounds too general. Your parents were your deities when you were a small child. We had to demonstrate good behavior to our parents to receive their blessings like toys. We had to be good children in class to our teacher deities to receive benefits. In the same way, there are deities which are not visible to our eyes, and yet they are forms of weather, forms of suns, forms of health, forms of, even your white blood cell can be called a deity. That means that which works together to make this world come together and work in harmony. Now the word soma means in Sanskrit extract. And there's two definitions for this. It depends which way you look at it. Because often soma is associated with amritam, which means immortality. Now you're going to say, how can a juice, because in the other second definition is juice, how can a juice, drinking it, make me immortal? That is impossible. So then we have to infer, and we have to ask. In that case, the extract can only refer to what? Extracting the elixir of knowledge from the Shastra, which removes avidya, thus immortality. Okay, I'll say that again. Soma means extract. I'm extracting what? And from where? I'm extracting knowledge, self-knowledge from where? From the Shastra. After having extracted it and gained and assimilated the knowledge through sadhana, then what happens? Avidya is removed, ignorance is removed. And then what happens? There's no more rebirth. And that is called immortality. That is why soma is always associated with amritam in Sanskrit, which is immortality. Now, if you want to speak about soma as a juice, which was used in ceremonies, don't ask what it's made of because there's a lot of controversies going around, then it was always taken together with the yajna. That means as a prasada, out of gratitude. It was never taken separately. This was just a Vedic ritual. And after having taken this soma yajna, now that you know the definition, what happens? The result is puta papa. One is free from papam in this life. Why? Because the punyam overshadows owning to the rituals performed in the Vedas. In other words, I say only this life because the person has performed rituals in the Vedas whose intention is to remove the papam, which is what they're intended to do. Then what? Swargatim prarthayante. As a result of performing the rituals in the Vedas, they gain īśvara's lower nature, called svarga. Svarga means heaven. We will get onto heaven soon. Instead of seeking for the higher. Higher is Chaitanya Tattvam, Chaitanya Swarupam, consciousness principle. In other words, they're too busy gaining the benefits of the lower, therefore they cannot attend to the higher. Suppose there is a toddler and you as a mother offer the toddler two options. One is an edible biscuit, a wheat biscuit, and the other is a gold biscuit. Which one is the toddler going to take? Yeah. Now, why is that? Because the toddler doesn't know that the gold biscuit can buy the toddler infinite biscuits. So all the toddler can see is right now, right here. So owing to their absence of knowledge, because they have not attended to Jnana Kanda of the Vedas, then they cannot tell any better other than gaining the benefit, extracting the benefit from what is immediately available as apara prakriti, or what is sweet and delicious. That's why I said verse 21 is sakama. What does sakama want? Entertainment or kama or artha. Now suppose a mother forces the child to take the golden biscuit. Is that going to work? So what's the solution? How does the mother get the child to actually, how does the mother convince? Because the mother knows, but the child doesn't. And she knows what's in the highest good for the child. But the child lacks nitya anitya viveka. So how does the mother say this to the child? What's the solution?
To provide options.
Well, several options, right? One, have to wait. There's not much you can do. So you have to wait for the child to sincerely grow up and start to see the value of gold versus the edible biscuit. The other thing is the mother can just be compassionately patient and keep educating, throwing some good metaphors from the Panchatantra for the metaphors to the child and showing how this, is a lot better. Like this is going to give you a lot more cookies. But you have to be patient. But because the child does not have that patience, it cannot work that well. That's why we said two paths in life as per Upanishad. One is the shreyaha, delayed gratification, and one is preyaha, which is immediate satisfaction. Just like a child cannot choose shreyaha, most of us also cannot choose delayed gratification. So what are we opting for? Worldly edible biscuits, metaphorical for sense pleasures, entertainment and kama and artha. This means that whatever we ask in life is exactly what we receive. The child had two options, wheat biscuit, gold biscuit. The child got exactly what they asked. Did Bhagavan impose that onto the child? No. Bhagavan presented as a form of mother. Here's one, here's two. The child, per their knowledge, chose the biscuit. And this is also important because we think that īśvara is the giver, a deliberate giver of our life. Often we say, do you want to get married? Oh, I'm just going to leave it up to īśvara. Right? No. This is an easy way out. It doesn't work like that. īśvara only gives us what we ask for through our consistent daily actions. The culminating effect creates punyam or papam, and then it has a consequence in the future. Thus, in other words, we can say that īśvara is like a shopkeeper and not a salesman. It simply stands and goes, okay, you want that? No problem, I'll give you that. It doesn't go, have you thought about that option there? Well, let me coerce you. Let me persuade you why that's better. You can't do that, just like the mom can't persuade the child. So īśvara is a shopkeeper, remember that.
That comes back to that old adage about the guy in the house where the flood was coming, and the first people came in and gave him a lift with them in the bus to get him away, and he said, no, God's going to look after me. And the floodwaters came out, and he went up to the next level, and then the boat comes in and says, look, come on, get in the boat, we'll take you out. He said, no, God's going to take care of it. And then the flood came up again, he went up to the roof, and a helicopter came across and said, look, come on, come up the rope, we'll pull you up. And, no, God's going to look after you. And the flood came right up, past the chimney pot, and he was stuck there, he was up around his neck, he says, God, why has thou forsaken me? He says, I sent you a bus and a boat and a helicopter, and you didn't choose. You can say you can leave it up to īśvara, but you're still going to have to express the choices that you're presented with.
Indeed, yeah. So it's not really this common talk that goes in the world. Just leave it up to īśvara. It doesn't work like that, because that implies what? That īśvara is then partial. Some people choose to be happy, some choose to be unhappy. Therefore, thinking like this limits īśvara to be a thinker of its own thoughts according to its own desires. That's not how īśvara is. So this means that you and I are 100% responsible for everything that we are going through at every single moment of our life. This is the nature of what a mature adult is. Accepting 100% responsibility, thus we can never ever blame our parents or society or lack of time. It is up to us when? Right now. Constantly now, it is up to us. Just like that man. He could have said, yes, please save me. But he didn't, right? Te surendra lokam asadhya. Those unintelligent people, sakama bhaktas, thus attain the world of Indra. Indra is Swarga. And this Indra is full of punyam. tons and tons of pleasures, sense pleasures, a lot of enjoyment. What kind of pleasures? Divyan, unimaginable pleasures, magnificent pleasures, splendorous pleasures, astounding pleasures, literally out of this world pleasures. We're talking about heaven now. So now, this sounds like a good idea, right? Maybe we should go to heaven.
For a while.
But before we do, let's see what the next verse says, just to make sure that everything's in line. The knowers of the three Vedas, who perform the ritual in which Soma is offered, and thereby being purified of their papa, having propitiated me with rituals, they pray and go to heaven. Gaining the world of Indra, which is a result of their punya, they enjoy the heavenly pleasures of the celestials in heaven. Te tam bhuktva swarga lokam vishalam, kshine punye martya lokam vishanti, evam trayi dharmam anuprapanaha, gata gatam kama kama labhante. Tam bhuktva swarga lokam. They enjoy heavenly delights, limited only by their own imagination. That's how great heaven is. Whatever you visualize, you instantly get in Swarga Loka. So in other words, there's no, okay, here's what you can have. No, I can just imagine it through my own mind, my idea of pleasure, and that's exactly what manifests in heaven. So this goes on for a very long time. And this is exactly how most of us perceive heaven, so it's not very far off. However, we only see the rose, right? The rose is the heaven. But what does the rose always have? Yeah, thorn. So now we have to ask, what is the thorn, right? So we will provide a thornly logic to see how there is a thorn indeed. So Swarga is attained how? You just said it in the last verse. Through punyam actions. And punyam is gained how? Through actions. By whom? By yourself. The actions by yourself, are they limited or unlimited? They're always limited in nature. This is why there is no action that I can do in this world that's going to produce an infinite amount of money in the bank account. It's going to produce a very finite. For that reason, what happens then? I then go back to work to gain another limited amount of money to enjoy that too. When it's exhausted, I have to go back to work and then get more money to enjoy. So in the same way, this punyam is money for swarga. So how do you pay to go to heaven? Through punya karma. That means a lot of good dharmic actions abiding by the Vedic injunctions. Now, what happens when you go broke in heaven? Because remember, heaven does not have any suffering. We just established that. Unimaginable pleasures. So what happens when the person runs out of their punyam as they will in heaven? Okay, what happens here? We suffer, right? There's no money, I have to be unemployed, I have to go on the streets. But in heaven, you can't do that. You have to then what? You have to go to an official and say, how can you send me back to earth, please? And then, no problem. You just go into this chamber and then they torpedo you back to earth. So the exhaustion in heaven equals coming back to earth. Now, just imagine heaven, right? Tons of unimaginable pleasures. Now, next moment, you're finding yourself in a dentist's chair with a sore injection, right? Drilling your teeth, and then it touches the nerve, right? And now, that's the nature of heaven, earth. Heaven, earth. There's one moment, there's pleasure, but every pleasure has an equal and opposite to itself, which is the pain. It's just hidden or delayed. Furthermore, the police in heaven, they're very strict. There's no person that can overstay. There's no illegal immigrants in heaven who go, okay, I ran out of punya, so I just want to hide in a corner and just enjoy this a little bit longer. They're super precise, right? They go, okay, for example, Arun, over there, okay, he's got his punya over, Dao punya over. Okay, the police comes, they send you right back to earth. So there is no overstaying there. You can't extend your visa. Also, you cannot create new punya karma in heaven. You can only exhaust it. The only place where we can create new punya is where? Bhurloka, here on earth. What happens eventually? Martya lokam, they come back to the world of mortals. Also in Mundaka Upanishad, section 1.2.10 says something very interesting. It says, even though the person comes back, there is no guarantee they will come back to Manushya Loka, because it depends on their fructifying karmas. So whatever is to happen consecutively next will the body they will gain. In other words, after, they're not going to kind of get a human body. It could get a beaver, for example, because that is their body. Or it could be a cactus. Now, if you think about a cactus has to live a very long time, right? And it's very prickly. And it can't die easily because it doesn't even need much water. So in other words, after I've enjoyed myself, now I'm a cactus and I hurt people and I can't even apologize. In other words, one moment, right, I was enjoying, and next moment I have to now exhaust my papam, which was the next consecutive step based on my fructifying karmas. So that's the disadvantage of going between these Svargaloka and Burloka. And one more point is withdrawal symptoms is the consequence. Suppose we're watching a movie and it's a super interesting, immersive movie. And in the middle of the movie, power cut. The power, right? What are you going to do? You're going to get infuriated, right? Why? So in other words, the proportion of enjoyment equals the proportion of pain. Thus, in the same way, the proportion of enjoyment in Svargaloka, after you come back to Burloka, your standards are up there. But Burloka is down here. So the person starts complaining, they don't like the air, everything's, I've got a headache, they're so sensitive to the environment. So it's a very hard readjustment process. Another is, for example, someone from India comes to a first world country like America or Australia, and now the standards are super high, the infrastructure is high. But they go back to India, what happens then? It's common. They start complaining. It's like, it's too noisy, too chaotic, right? I was enjoying myself. It's so quiet here, but over there, it's just, messy. So in other words, what have we now established? We start complaining when? When we go from the higher to the lower. We never complain when we go from lower to higher. That's why when we all go, heaven. But when you're in heaven, oh no, earth, right? So in other words, there's this plus and minus to both. Furthermore, Krishna says, Trayi dharmam anuprapanaha. Those who resort to karma kanda section of the Vedas, the rituals, they use their punyam merit for the sake of exhausting perishable delights. Perishable delights means artha or kama. That's how they use their up. For example, most people when they get a salary, how do they exhaust the salary, this money? On traveling, on enjoying. Do people use it for education? Even if they use it for education, not many, right? Most use it for traveling, enjoying. But even if those use it for education, are they using it for education later on so I can get a job and I can use that money to benefit myself through artha and kama? Is that not the case? In other words, I get educated to make a lot of money in the future and I can use that to enjoy myself more than I can do so now. So that's not the education we're talking about. We're speaking of education which nobody cares. Nobody cares that that you have aparoksha jnanam or that you know para prakriti. A person doesn't want to see that in the world. They want to see, okay, let me see how much money you've made for other companies. Let me see what skills, qualifications, let me see how you can profit this company. Nobody cares about whether the person is liberated or not. So because there is no incentive to get educated, thus very few get educated into paravidya, into knowledge which ends all knowledge. That's another reason why nobody is interested in the Shastra, because there's no worldly demand for it. Nobody is going to give you a reward for it. Okay, the summary of this verse is Bhuloka, earth, is the most often revisited loka out of the 14 lokas. The reason is because in the Buddha loka we create new punya and papa, but other lokas we only exhaust. In the 6 upper lokas, you got earth. Now 6 upper, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way up to Brahma loka, you exhaust your punya karma. And the 7 lower lokas, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, we exhaust our papam. In the Christian language, this is called hell, and this is called heaven. Actually, heaven is specifically Swarga Loka, which is above Pitr Loka. So Swarga Loka is 1, 2 above earth. We will get to that, where heaven is. So the biography of a samsari or a sakama bhakta goes like this. Karma, then palam, then janma, or action, benefit, rebirth. Or the other one, sow, reap, reborn. Cause, effect, reborn. That's the autobiography of a samsari. These people, having enjoyed that vast heaven, enter the world of mortals when their punya is exhausted. In this manner, following the rituals in the 3 Vedas, those who are desirous of various ends gain the condition of repeated going and coming, called samsara. Ananyash chintayanto mam ye janah pariyupasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vaham yaham. Verse 20 to 21 spoke of sakama bhakti, finished. This verse, 22, will speak of nishkama bhakti. In other words, madhyama bhakti, or stage 2, which you already should have put on the paper when we began. So stage 1 was īśvara was the means and the world was the end. Stage 2, īśvara is the end and the world is the means. So this means, when I say end, it means īśvara is the object of love, is the focus of love. That's a better word, focus. And in stage 2, the love for the end is far superior to stage 1. It's very simple why. The mind, you will notice from your own experience, is always focused on what? What is the mind obsessed on? Is it the end or the means? It is always the end. We only do the means for the sake of the end. If we could, we would skip the means gladly. We would just get the end, right? Most people, like, say, you go to the gym and you exercise. So I exercise, and why? For the sake of impressing others, right? I'm not talking about myself. The I is always universal. I could be talking about anything or anyone. For example, that you're driving a car to Brisbane from Melbourne. So Brisbane is what? My focus of love. Why? Because Brisbane has where I need to attend. So Brisbane is my end. Are you going to get distracted between here and Brisbane while driving a car? You could. And even if you do, what never leaves the mind? Brisbane. So this means I stop by, I see family, I go to shops, fill up the petrol, the car maybe gets broken down, it gets delayed by 5 days, a lot of drama happens, but never leaves the final and the ultimate end, which is Brisbane. In the same way, the person in Nishkama Bhakti never loses focus on what is my object of love. Another example is, suppose you want to build a house and you see a contractor, because the contractor is the one that has the plans. Are we going to fall in love with the contractor? No. But how much time do we actually spend with the contractor? A lot, right? Why don't we fall in love with him or her? Usually contractors are him, right? Because the object, the focus of love for the house is much greater than the means. The house is the end and the means is the contractor. Thus, there is no question of falling in love into worldly objects when the focus of love is much greater for the ultimate end, which is īśvara. In the same way, the Nishkama's eye is thus on the end. Throughout all worldly orchestrated duties or performed duties. So this means if you're a mom or a dad or an employee or an employer, it doesn't matter what work we have, we never lose focus on the ultimate end. For example, suppose you're a newborn mother. The nishkama newborn mother will go like this. The baby is the means, but what's the ultimate end? Īśvara. Now, take an ordinary mother. We're not going to call her a sakama, just an ordinary mother. The baby becomes the end, and nurturing the baby becomes the means. In other words, where's the question of God? This is how we get trapped. We think, okay, this is important. I've got a business to run. I've got a child to take care of. But that becomes the way of life. That's all that life becomes. So this is the shift. So this means both the driver never loses track of where they need to go, nor does the mother ever lose track of what is she born. What is her highest purpose here, no matter how important it happens to be. So this means what? They do not neglect their worldly duties. They fully attend to them, fully perform them. However, they never lose track of the final end. That's the nishkama bhakta. So in short, janaha mam pariyupasate. So they worship me without any other goal. This can also mean uttama bhakti. Remember the third category? So in other words, why do they worship God without any other goal? We'll apply a logic to this. Because, number one, they know īśvara's nature is what? Ananda, limitless. And if they destroy the idea that the self is different from īśvara, then the self is also then what? Ananda, limitless. So they know that all of the joy lies, all of the freedom lies in īśvara. And they know, from my standpoint, I'm not full, I'm not joyful. So if I can get to destroy the barriers which makes the vyashti different from the samashti, then I also get to be Ananda, limitless. And then a doubt will now arise out of yoga kshema. And the doubt will say this: what about yoga, in other words, acquiring possessions, making money, resources, or supporting or earning? And what about kshema? What about protecting what I have? Genuine concerns, right, in this world. So the answer to this will be earn sufficiently, but don't hoard. Earn just enough, but do not make it become the object of life. Don't make earning become the means or the end to life itself. Why? Because, we will see now, Lord will take care of you. So now a doubt's going to come up. You're going to say, is Lord trustworthy? Can I rely on Lord who promises that He will take care of me? And then Krishna says, Yoga kshemam vaham yaham. I will take care of the bhakta's yoga kshema under one condition. So Lord is saying this: I will take care of your acquisition and your protection of what you have acquired if you follow one condition. And what is that condition? Tesham nitya bhiyuktanam. Only those who are solely, only, and very committed or steadfast in the goal of me exclusively, they shall have their acquisitions and protections taken care of by me. Now, the word exclusively means what? Their goal is undivided. It is unwavering. It is sole. It is unshared. That means the whole life is about Lord. That's it. I'm not saying now deny the activities already established, that gets taken care of, but their whole life is about, everything they do about attaining īśvara. Then they will be taken care of by the Lord. Question: why do most feel like they're not being taken care of the Lord?
Because they're not getting what they want.
Yeah, exactly. So their raga dvesha is overshadowing what is in the highest good for them. For example, this is the difference between a want and a need. I want a Coca-Cola, but I need water. So then the person goes, well, I want a Coca-Cola, I'm not getting it, thus Lord is not listening to me, then I discard Lord. Another reason is very simple logic from the Shastra. Lord says this, I'm always taking care of you, but if you're taking care of your life, then I can't interfere because you're applying your own free will. I have no right to overshadow your own efforts. So Lord is saying this, you need to step away for a while, stop being a control freak, and then I can offer you help.
That's a fine balance between stepping back and doing nothing
Exactly.
and actually exercising choices as they appear.
Yeah, exactly. So this is also a reassuring verse because often we worry about our finances or in the future. If you think about it, you're going to live another 20, 30 years, right? And if you really ascertain this knowledge or assimilate it, then you shouldn't worry so much. That will be the byproduct of really listening. Furthermore, lastly, a grihasta, a householder, or a sannyasi does not determine whether the person has peace of mind. What determines whether a person has peace of mind? Their attitude, how they look at it. Because technically a sannyasi should feel a lot more insecure than a grihasta, since grihasta always got someone who's taking care of you. But a sannyasi, they're very free. So this shows what? That it is not whether you're a householder or a monk or a sannyasi, that has no correlation to how peaceful a mind is. It is all what? One's own state of mind.
Which comes back to recognizing your duties and then exercising those duties in a conscious way.
Exercise them in a conscious, deliberate way, yeah, with vichara, with inquiry. Those people who see me as non-different from them offer worship by dwelling on me. I take care of the yoga, that means the acquisitions, and kshema, protection, of those ever steadfast ones. Yepyanyanya devata bhaktyaha yajante shradhayan vitaha te pimameva kaunteya yajantya vidhi purvakam. Previous verse, Krishna said, the nishkama bhakta is the one who worships me. A doubt's going to arise. Does that mean that everyone, because when Krishna says me, he's talking about Krishna, right? As total. So it's going to say now, does that mean that everyone in the world should worship only Krishna? No. Right? It also brings up the doubt, who is now inferior and superior? It's actually an eternal war in religion. Should I worship Vishnu, Shiva, Buddha, Yahweh, or Yahweh, Elohim, Sahib, Christ, Krishna, Allah? Like, who's superior and who's inferior? Or like, which one should I worship to get the absolute best? Like, I don't want to make any mistakes in this life. Just give me the one that embodies everyone. Chapter 7:21, which we've done, answered this question, and it said, all forms of God, the ones that I just mentioned, are finite. All of them. Every single one. However, one can indeed invoke the infinite, the word invoke, infinite, in the finite. It is entirely the bhakta's choice. That means it's in their own hands. Paramarthananda uses an example, I like it. He says a checkbook leaf is value neutral, and on the checkbook leaf you write what? A value number on it. So a value-neutral checkbook, and you don't use checks anymore, right? I'm using examples from 20 years ago. Just stick with the examples, right? They work. So you put a big number on the checkbook leaf, and suddenly it gains all of the value in the world. Whereas right before my own action, actually inscribed that value, that same checkbook leaf was absolutely value neutral. In the same way, the bhakta, by imposing the infinite onto or as the one who represents īśvara, like Krishna, then that deity becomes infinite. For example, if you choose in the Bhagavad Gita context to invoke the infinite in Krishna, then in that case, every other devata who is other than Krishna becomes what? Finite. And Krishna becomes infinite. Shiva Purana, right? Then Shiva becomes the infinite, and everyone in contrast, including Krishna, becomes finite. In other words, you choose who invokes or who represents the infinite. It is up to you. So this is why you shouldn't now go, okay, well, I don't resonate with Krishna, but they say Krishna is the infinite, so this is not going to work for me. No, if you want Christ, then please do so. There's no problems there. Krishna is also going to say, instead of worshipping finite devatas, finite gods, then you can just worship me, the capital Me, which represents the infinite. And there's 4 reasons why. The first one is logic. All of the finite are included where? In the infinite. So now why should I pray to individual tree branches for eons of time when I can just address the roots, because of which the entire tree of devatas grows? And the second reason is none of the worship goes to the devatas. It actually goes to me, the infinite one, the omnipresent, the omniscient one. Just like you touch a limb, left foot, pinky. You're touching my pinky. Or is she going to say, you're touching me? Touching me. In other words, I touched her left foot, pinky devata, and where did that go? Where did that worship go to? The entire Purusha.
So isn't that a confusion of religion, in the sense that they have their God like, as the omnipotent, but at the exclusion of all others, as opposed to the acceptance of the finite?
Yeah, it's like saying that God is omnipotent or omnipresent, but then I go to the temple. What? He's everywhere, but then I go to the temple. He's supposed to be in my house also. He's supposed to be right here, right now.
But even at the denial of other religions, like the Christians will deny Allah, for instance.
Yeah.
Yes, that is the difference. Difference between other religions and this.
The religion is different.
There you pray only Jesus, or you pray only Allah.
That's right, yeah. That's Eka
But
Rupa.
here it's not like that.
It's not like that, yeah. So you see, so that's a good, so we just established what? Eka Rupa, stage 1. Sakama Bhakti, I pray to Ishta Devata, who means something, who is customized according to my raga dvesha. The third reason is all karma palam, all fruits of actions, are not given by the worshipped devata, they're given by the total, by īśvara. In other words, if I ask for Tao's hand to help me, and am I going to thank the Tao's hand, or am I going to? I'm going to thank the person. In other words, even though it seems like her little devata hand helped me, it actually Tao helped me, not her hand. The hand was dependent on the entire person for the hand to perform its karma palam onto the one who asked for the benefit. And lastly, worshipping limited devatas equals gaining limited karma palam. If I pray to Lakshmi for wealth, I'm only going to get wealth pertaining to the area which I prayed. I'm not going to gain health. I pray to one, but I'm not praying to another. Whereas if I pray to the total, then I'm gaining infinite benefit. How does a Nishkama Bhakta worship? Shraddhayan vitaha yajante. They worship with faith, but they don't know that their worship is not going to their devata, it is instead going to me, the infinite one. In this case, Krishna, or if it was Shiva Purana, it would be to Shiva. What is their problem? Avidhi purvakam. The problem is ajnanam, no knowledge. In other words, they don't know that by worshipping me, Paraprakriti, they'd be worshipping simultaneously every single devata. They don't know that. Why? Because they have not gotten into Jnana Kanda section of the Vedas. O Arjuna, even those who are devotees of other finite gods and who worship them with faith are worshipping me alone unknowingly. Aham hi sarva yajnanam bhokta cha prabhureva cha natu mamabhijananti tatvena tascha vantite. Last verse will be further clarified now. And this verse we can apply to stage 1 and stage 2, Sakama Bhakti and Nishkama Bhakti. Aham sarva yajnanam bhokta. I am the ultimate receiver of all offerings to any devata. In other words, other devatas are like postal people. They deliver all prayers to the ultimate one. For example, if I wanted to deliver a package to Cameron, I say, can you just give this to Cameron, please? Right? And it's like, yeah, sure, no problem. You pass it on and on and on and on. So devatas are like this. They're postal. They simply deliver and it all goes to Cameron, the one who delivers all of the karma palam. For example, devatas are like advisory board members, right? And who hires those, who keeps those advisory board members in position? The CEO. So as long as the CEO says you are hired, the advisory board has the power to give benefit to the employees. The employees are the bhaktas. So the moment the CEO fires, Krishna fires the devatas, then those devatas no longer have any power. So what happens is the employee starts worshipping the manager or the supervisor, but they do not know that the supervisor and manager only gain their power to the ultimate one, which is Krishna CEO, which is the highest one. However, not to mama bhijananti tatvena. Those devotees don't know my true nature. They are thus deluded, thinking that I am a physical, finite human being. Apurna swarupam. In other words, they think that I am a human being. I have a form. I have 4 arms. I have many heads, or I'm some kind of a Ishtadeva. And they cannot then tell the difference between superficial saguna or maya, and they cannot tell the difference to nirguna satchit ananda swarupam. They can't discern the difference between saguna and nirguna. Furthermore, even if they worship me, now suppose they do worship the infinite, you know what happens? They do not ask for me. Why don't they ask for me? Therefore, even if they do worship me exclusively, they don't know my higher nature, Paraprakriti, thus they cannot worship the highest. So it's like saying this: īśvara is willing to give for free, unlimited, for free. But what do human beings do? We choose finite at a cost. You can either have free, unlimited, or finite at a cost. Is that the experience of humans? Yeah. On and on. I want one more. By īśvara, you can have one and only, and there is no more one more. But I say, oh, I'm not ready for that, so I'm going to have one more anyway. īśvara has his hands in both pockets. And one hand is constantly giving finite objects. Right? You can have some kama, some artha, more kama, artha, no problem. You can have another life, you can be an insect, you can be a cactus, you can go to swarga, you can be a beaver, whatever you want. But the other hand, paralyzed. It's called moksha hand. So in other words, very few are asking for the infinite. Thus, moksha hand hardly ever takes out and offers one time infinite, or many times finite. And for this reason, cha vantite, owning to the foolishness or underutilized buddhi of such individuals, they do not exercise nitya anitya viveka, what is real, what is unreal, because they're unutilized buddhis. For this reason, they fall into samsara. Samsara means mixture of pain and pleasure. Indeed, I alone am the enjoyer and the Lord of all the yajnas, but they do not know me in reality, therefore they fall. Yanti deva vrata devan, pitran yanti pitr vrataha, bhutani yanti bhutejyaha, yanti madhyajinopimam. The question will be, why do people have to work for liberation? If īśvara already is sarvajnanam, all knowledge, and īśvara knows what is best for us, why can īśvara just not give us moksha? Why do we have to suffer life after life striving for it? And even if we think we got it, we still fail because we don't have the patience. Why can īśvara just not give us the patience at least to have the interest in the Shastra at least? Why not? There's two reasons why. Firstly, a human being is endowed with what?
Free will.
Freedom to will. Freedom to choose. Freedom to pick. Freedom to select. Freedom to decide. In other words, a human being has what an animal doesn't. An animal does have a buddhi only sophisticated for punya exhaustion or papa exhaustion. However, they cannot utilize their intellect for hand-picking or choosing where to go. This means that God cannot choose for us. However, God's laws and orders can indeed influence our actions. What do you mean by that? Simple. It's a new moon. How do we feel? Different than full moon. There's a weather that's dull, then suddenly our moods also get changed. But it doesn't make us rob a bank, but it does make us gloomy enough to consider robbing a bank. So in other words, it doesn't make us do things, but it can influence according to the laws and the natures which are making up this whole universe.
Yeah, but that's where my question was. We talk about the laws and orders of things, and we say that all action takes place according to the laws and orders.
Cause and effect.
Cause and effect, and Bhagwan or īśvara has nothing to do. It's just a silent witness to everything.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah, and now suddenly we're saying that God can help us, and if we worship God, like things can change.
Yeah.
So I don't understand that relationship very clearly
Yeah.
in that aspect, because first we're talking that all karma takes place according to laws and order.
Yeah, yeah.
We are personally independent of īśvara and doing everything, and now suddenly īśvara is there.
No, I understand. So I already said that it's īśvara's laws and orders. So whenever I say īśvara, what should come to your mind? īśvara's laws and orders. Because if I keep saying īśvara's laws and orders, that's just, longer to say. So when I say īśvara, automatically, īśvara is nature of para and apara prakriti, higher and lower. However, that nature is purely para prakriti, but the laws and orders are what is expressed as a cause and effect basis, but it is not īśvara itself, which is the cause of that, because it is the pure sakshi. Yeah. When I establish the terminology, then I am free of being called out as teaching the wrong stuff, because I already said before, īśvara's laws and orders and not īśvara himself. Yeah. So I can now continue saying īśvara. What comes to your mind? īśvara's laws and orders. Okay, good. īśvara simply offers A, B, C, or D. You can do whatever you want. But suppose I do kama and artha. Then what is indirectly the manushya saying? Lord, I think I made a mistake choosing a human body. Please give me an animal body next time. Why? Because the whole purpose of free will is to exercise the fourth purushartha. The artha and kama is incidental. Dharma and moksha is what the manushya should be pursuing alone. So if the manushya is not seeking that, then they're indirectly saying, I don't need a human body in the next life. So in other words, if the person is not pursuing this, then they're looking to be a dog next time. So what we have now established, Bhagavan has no power to choose for us. It is entirely in our hands, only to our free will, our power to choose. If I don't exercise that power, I'm asking for an animal body next time. And the reason too is, suppose that īśvara offers both a guru and a shastra to the person. Is that person going to say yes if they're uninterested? In other words, I can only give you if you choose to receive it. The mother can offer a gold biscuit to the baby. If the baby doesn't, or toddler doesn't receive it, it is as good as worthless. So once again, Bhagavan is powerless. In reason 1, free will, I don't exercise it to pursue the Shastra. Bhagavan is powerless. Reason 2, I say no despite getting a guru and a Shastra. Again, Bhagavan is powerless in both cases. Deva vrata devan yanti. Worshippers of devatas receive results which are limited in nature, because the devata is also limited. And pitr vrataha pitrn yanti. Worshippers of ancestors will go to pitr loka. Pitr loka is souls of the departed. When I say soul in Vedanta, what comes to mind? Sanskrit word? Soul. No? 100% incorrect. Jivatma. And what is a Jivatma? Sukshma Sharira and Karana Sharira. The reason I brought this up is because the word soul does have a context, but I've never heard it being used for Atma. When we say soul, it means that one which is inheriting a new body depending on their punya, papa, karma. That's why we say when a person dies, what happens? Their soul leaves. What leaves? Their physical body? No. What leaves? Their sukshma sharira, their subtle body, and finds a new body to inherit. I said the word loka. Now instantly a Westerner is going to freak out probably and going to say, what is this loka business? Loka in the scientific language, according to science, can also be called or equated to parallel universe, a parallel reality which is not immediately available because it is a different dimension. Just like you can't see gamma rays, like where are they? You can't see Wi-Fi, you can't see TV signals. Does that mean they're not there? Yeah, in the same way, a loka is a different reality. Einstein published a theory of relativity paper in the early 1900s to establish the relationship between matter and objects. In other words, energy and mass equals mc squared. In other words, energy and mass. Now this formula, this relationship was already established in the Vedas for thousands of years. How? We've got the Pancha Mahabhuta, the 5 elements, and we've got Trigunas. In other words, constantly things are going into manifestation and out of manifestation. This only came to Einsteinian theory of relativity in the 1900s. I'm just bringing this up so you're not thinking, what is this loka business? Where is the Pitra loka? Where are these ancestors? 1 loka above Bhurloka. So Bhurloka, Earth, that's where Dave is right now. Okay, and we're here. Next one is Pitr. When a person dies, why do they all report most of the time some familiar face, right? Uncle, sister, cousin, mom, dad. Why? Because it is the closest loka to the earth. And then 1 above is the world of Indra, which is Swarga loka, heaven. And this is also established based on the Upanishadic statement, which says, whatever the person, whatever you, the Jivatma, worships, unknowingly, what happens? Eventually you become, you take on, you get influenced by. This is the only reason why we should provide noble heroes to young children, because young children easily get influenced by those heroes which they read about, and they start to unconsciously associate themselves or see themselves like that. That's why in Sanskrit we have Panchatantra, which are fables and stories of animals and people. And you'll see in Lion King. If you've seen the Lion King, you will see the lion in the sky, and he's like the all Sakshi, and he's always overlooking the world. So these things are throughout the culture, but they're very important and should be provided to our children because it does make a difference indeed. Bhute jyaha bhutani yanti. worshippers of bhutas, bhutas is rajasic and tamasic deities, will get those limited benefits also. Now, rajasic and tamasic deities are also can be invoked. Like in Nigeria, we have the juju, which is actually a form of black magic or witchcraft, which by invoking a certain devata, then this can be used either to heal or to harm. So these people, as Krishna says, worship these bhutas, which are tamasic or rajasic deities, which I can either provide help, or if the person is adharmic, how will they use it? To harm. In other words, it all depends who is invoking the ritual. That is how that ritual will be used, for good or for bad. Whereas, matya jinaha mam yanti. Those who worship me, which represents Brahman, which represents Shanti, which represents Chetana Tattvam, which represents Paraprakriti, will indeed come to me only, to that one which is both Ananda, Ananta, and Anadi, beginningless. In other words, it is all up to you. When? Now, 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 now. Worship of gods, devatas, reach the gods. Worshippers of ancestors reach the ancestors. Worshippers of bhutas reach the bhutas. And my worshippers reach me. As I said, it's all up to you. Sarve bhavantu sukhinaha, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.